In this section, we are looking at creating a basic file system, and we'll write a simple hello world program. So to begin with, please look in the description for this video, and you'll find the Dropbox link, and you'll be able to get these two files. So there's a style sheet file and an HTML file, workspace.html. So if we go ahead and load up workspace HTML in our text editor. So here, as I mentioned before, I'm using Sublime Text. This is the basic structure of our HTML document. So of course, in this course, we are focusing on JavaScript, not HTML. And in fact, all this will do is give us the basic page infrastructure for us to start working on our JavaScript. So we won't be spending much time on this file, but let's just look at what's in there. So in HTML, we typically create a head section. So we can see in this head, we specify some meta tags, and we can also specify the download of fonts. So we might want to use specific fonts in our program. And we also quite often use the jQuery language. So these are all links to files that are hosted on the web, and you can look up any link and add them there, or you can just use the links as they are. So you don't have to change any of this. This just gives us a title for our page when we load it. So we'll see in the tab, it will give the tab a title. And here is how we load a style sheet. So we link to a style sheet in this way. And so we have in the same folder style.css. So we can just list the href equals style CSS, and it will load that style sheet for us. Another thing we'll want to do is create a new workspace file. So I've just commented that out there, but we'll switch that on just now. And then in the header also, there is a section here, script, and you can see script closed between these tags. And there's a document ready check here. So this is a function coming from jQuery. So in jQuery, we can use this operator, this dollar operator. And so jQuery is going to check the document for its ready status. So the ready status means all the files that we've listed here have loaded, for example. And there are a couple of other things it does, but just focusing on the files. So we can add as many files into our document as we want. So we just add to our list here, and we'll add this workspace file just now. But you can add all your files in here. And then if you enclose whatever functions we want to write here, we can, if we enclose those functions in this document.ready, then the page will check that the document is ready, that all these files have loaded before trying to execute the code that we put in there. So this is largely where we are going to work. And you'll see further down here in this document, we've been talking about the head section. The body section is actually the page that the user can see. So in the body section, a div, so a container has been created, and we give it an ID of root view, and everything that we'll be developing in JavaScript will be served into this. So the entire web page will draw itself into this container root view. And, and this is a way for us to avoid HTML, because JavaScript is a real programming language. And in this course, we don't really view HTML as a real programming language. In fact, we try to avoid this messiness of all these scripts and this kind of XML style of enclosing things. So this code we regard as being very ugly to work with. So we try and get away from this as quickly as possible. And the way we do that is we create the page infrastructure, we create a container here, and then we use this function just to invoke our JavaScript. And in fact, the majority of our Java scripting won't be written on this page at all. So what we want to do is create a new file. So just Control N in Sublime Text, and let's create a function here. Let's say function workspace test. And this function, the only thing it will do is log something to the console. So console.log hello world. Hello world. Okay, and let's save this. And I want to save this in the same folder. So the folder that we have our HTML and our style document, we are going to save this here as workspace.js. So now we have this workspace.js file, and we want this file to load with our page. So that's where we'll add this workspace.js into our page. So this is the syntax for adding JavaScript files into our workspace, right? We use script, and then here type is text JavaScript, and the source for this, and we provide the path to the file that we want to load. So workspace.js, we have in this workspace file this function that we've just defined, and we can expect that this will load into the page now. So if we go ahead and run this, right? So let's just have a quick look at the document again. We've got everything in the head up here. We can see workspace.js will load up. And we also have the section here that after everything has loaded, that this is going to run. And we also have available to us the root view. It's not something we are really using at the moment, but it's there for when we do want it. So just saving that, Control S to save. So workspace.html is now saved. And then if we look in our file system here, we have all the files together. And if we just double click on workspace.html, you can see it loads in the browser with the path. Something to mention is I tend to do all my development in a Dropbox folder. So this helps me because I know then that all my code is automatically saved to my Dropbox space as well. So I don't have to worry about backing up my files and so on. But anyway, just clicking on that will load up this page. And you can see at the moment, we don't see anything at all. And that's because we have not tried to serve anything to the page. And in fact, the one function that we looked at, right? So when we wrote workspace.js, we were logging to the console. So let's have a look in the console. And as we said in the previous video, Control-Shift-K on Firefox to bring up the console. And even in the console, we're not seeing anything as yet. So the reason for that is we haven't instructed for this function to run. So we want this function to log to the console hello world. And so here, so we need to run workspace test. So this function needs to run. And remember, we want that to run when all the documents have loaded. So right here, we'll insert workspace test, and with the brackets, so that because we want to execute that, and then the function should run. So Control S to save the page, and then coming back to our browser, Alt Tab to the browser, Control F5 to reload the page. Now we can see hello world appears in our console. And in the console, so if we change this, and if we just add some change to this, and then Control S to save it, and then we reload the page, you can see it's updated the text there. And so that's the way that we expect to work. We will stick to JavaScript, and we won't often reference this page unless we want to look up something or add more files or something like that. So we won't spend any time on the HTML. We'll want to stick with the JavaScript, make our changes here, Alt Tab into our space, rerun the page, and that's how it will load up. Something we can also try to do here is use the Java, the jQuery function to maybe write some text on the screen itself. So we can reference the container, which is root view. So the container, this div tag is a container, or this div is a container, and then the ID for that is root view. So we can reference the container in this way. So now our jQuery function is pointing to the container on the page, and we can add text to the page by listing here HTML, and we can add our text here. So hello again. So let's save that and reload the page, and we can see up here, hello again. And of course, there are many things we could do to format this, but the point is we can write to the console. So the console is where we can have internal messages that we don't necessarily want the end user to see, and we can send messages to the end user on the body of the page itself using this kind of code. Okay, so that's a basic workflow. We work in our JavaScript here, make our changes, Control S to save, Alt Tab to the page, reload the page, and review the results, look for any error messages here. If there is an error, so let's induce an error. Let's just say we had a little typo, and we wrote that. So let's save this, and let's reload the page here. And here you can see the error. So it's saying console.lg is not a function. So go please and check your line 3 of your workspace.js document. And then if we look at line 3 here, yes, there's the error. So save the update and reload the page, and all is well again. So that's the basic workflow. Edit our JavaScript code, go back here, reload the page. If we are not getting the results that we expect on the page, the first thing to check is whether we have whether we are loading the most recent version of the page. And as we said in the previous session, all we have to do is go to our settings under privacy and security, clear data, and clear everything. Clear now, and then go back to the page. And then when we reload that, that will load the most recent instance of our files. Please also note that the files it will reload are, of course, these ones. So it will, we don't expect any change to these files. So these files are already hosted on the internet. We are not editing directly on a server, but these files that are stored on our local hard drive, that can be modified and updated. And so those are the files we are trying to reload there. Okay, so that's the basic workflow, and we'll get into some more sophisticated developments on our JavaScript next.